Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have you here at our 2026 kickoff. I am Max Martin. I'm the Research and Impact Director here at the Power Coalition, and I'm going to throw it over to my colleague, Yaz.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Yasmini Cookfin with Power Coalition. It is great to be on here. So, we're going to start off with an icebreaker for this evening. So, the icebreaker will be, and you can definitely put your name and organization, city in the chat as well. But the icebreaker question is, we will be visiting every corner of the state for the Roadshow. When we come to your town, where do we need to eat? Now, y'all know in Louisiana, we love great food. So, where in your city would you like us to go? And feel free to come off mute, and you can put it in the chat as well. So, again, put your name, your organization, and your city, and what restaurant we must try. Sorry, y'all, I muted myself. Alrighty, so please feel free to put it in the chat as we move along. Oh, okay, so Sharon said tongue cypress in if lunch or later. Breakfast at Wood's Bakery. Okay, okay. All right, I'm gonna have to try that. We're gonna have to try some places. All righty. So as I want to say, we can just give it a few more minutes, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes max.
No, yeah, let's go ahead and kick off, Yaz.
Alrighty, cool. Alrighty. So let's start off with the mission. Alrighty. So what is Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, right? Of course, we are a statewide organization, but let's start with our mission. Our mission. We're a team of organizations who believe in the power of community and taking action. Our goal is to equip our fellow Louisianians with the knowledge and information they need to find their voice and learn when to use it. So whether that means, Power Coalition have this thing where we say we have a definite statement of the people is closest to the problem or the closest to the solution, right? So we can tell you within a community, what we stand for, what we need in our community across the state, we as people, right? We also state that government should be accountable to citizens for its actions, right? We put those folks into place, right? So we should be working together alongside of our legislator. Intersectionality is mandatory in policy advocacy, right? So all things tied together. Alrighty. And that, like I said before, we're a statewide civic engagement table. As you can see, the list of our partners on the right side. But our statewide community, each of our anchor partners and coalition partners holds a body of work that informs our values, analysis, and approach to moving the needle on the persistent systems that hold Louisiana at the bottom of most quality of life indicators. Collectively, we work together to move an agenda that is informed by our analysis, work, and obstacles. Alrighty. And with that, I'll go to taking the power pledge. So please feel free to scan the QR code and you can fill out one of our pledge cards. And that means, you're pledging to vote in every election, holding your elected officials accountable, and advocate for equity and justice within your community. Alrighty, Max, I'll turn it over to you with what lies ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Yaz. Appreciate it. What lies ahead? So we have a lot of big changes this year, and a lot developing work that we're doing here at the Power Coalition. The first big one is the closed primary system that we're changing to in Louisiana. So this year, for the first time, for a lot of different elections, we're using a closed primary, which means if you're registered as a Democrat, you vote for the Democratic candidates. If you're registered for a Republican, you vote for the Republican candidates. And if you're registered as no party, you get to choose. Now, if you notice all the way over here on the right side, if you're registered with another party, like Libertarian or Green Party, you don't get to vote in this process and you can't vote until the general election. So, what races does this apply to on the May 16th ballot? The May 16th election, these are the races that are going to be using the closed primary system. We have the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House, the first, third, and fourth state Supreme Court seats, Public Service Commission Districts 1 and 2, and Bessie District 1. In addition, as just discussed, one of these races is going to be the Public Service Commission. And we wanted to take some time out. A lot of folks across the state will be voting for a new Public Service Commissioner, and we're going to be having two members termed out by term limits for the first time. So the Public Service Commission is constitutionally created independent body that has a lot of authority in our state. It's not at the direction of the governor. Um, and it is self-funded by fines and fees. The Public Service Commission regulates electric, gas, water, telecom, and interstate transportation. They even set the rates for prison phone calls and how expensive those can be. So, why is this important? They set your utility rates. They can approve or deny all new resource additions. They're responsible for energy efficiency rulemaking, and they decide on the value of residential rooftop solar taxes and costs. They have oversight over transmission and distribution investment, and they regulate all sorts of transportation around power in the state of Louisiana. So this is an incredibly important election that directly impacts the cost that you pay. And folks, I know some folks are having trouble with the Zoom, so I just wanted to drop this link in the chat. If anyone you know is having trouble trying to get in, they can use this Zoom link here to join us. So, in addition, on the ballot, there are going to be five constitutional amendments that everyone in the state votes on, no matter where you live. A lot of these are amendments that they're bringing back from the No on Four campaign, No on All campaign from March of last year. So, the First Amendment is a huge change to civil service. This is really important because it gives the lawmakers more control over state jobs, weakens job protections, and shifts away from the independent model that we currently have. The Power Coalition is asking votes to vote no on Amendment 1. Amendment 2 is proposed changes to the St. George Community School System. So this is really important because a separate system may allow St. George to retain more local resources, could lead to uneven funding between school systems, and widen the already widened gap and disparities we see within the parish. So we're asking folks to vote no on this one as well. Proposed amendment number 3 is the teacher retirement debt funding measure, and this is basically taking three different trust funds and combining them to provide teachers with a one-time pay raise. This is really important because it's taking long-term educational funding and excuse me, taking long-term educational funding and combining it for only a one-time teacher pay raise. And so for that reason, we're asking folks to vote no. Proposed amendment number 4 is incredibly important because it changes the way municipalities tax business inventory. And a lot of places in the state, local municipalities really rely on this inventory tax to fund schools, to fund first responders, and other really important needs. And so we're asking folks to vote no. And finally, amendment number 5 changes the mandatory retirement age for judges from 70 to 75, provided that a judge may continue to serve a complete term in office. And this is a really important measure that we have not taken a position on. This would extend the retirement age, allowing more experienced judges to serve longer, but it would also slow turnover in judicial seats and reduce opportunity for new judges. And so this measure is an opportunity for you to learn more, and you can always go to our website and learn more. And we have not taken a position on this one. And so with that, I will turn it over to my partner, Cree, who can tell you a little bit more about some of our really important work we've been doing at the legislature.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Hi, this image that's on the screen was a super major moment, and I kind of want to just pause here to really highlight the importance of some of the work that we've been doing around the Voting Rights Act. And, SB 365, the Louisiana State Voting Rights Act, was heard in Senate and Governmental Affairs this week. And despite strong advocacy, the bill did not pass out of committee, but we saw something extremely powerful. One, the fact that for numerous weeks, leading up to this moment, we saw us stand up together and we fight for what we believe is the right choice and what is the right choice. It was so powerful that we had over 138 green cards submitted and 70 written testimonies submitted, and 200 plus people showed up to testify in committee. So it was just extremely remarkable. And I also want to just really take a moment to share some of the elements of what the Louisiana Voting Rights Act is, and what makes it super important. So federal protections under the Voting Rights Act have been weakened over time. And states are now responsible for stepping up to protect voters. And Louisiana VRA protects against voter dilution, it protects against voter suppression, ensuring fair representation, establishes pre-clearance for local governments. And then also it provides a tool to challenge any discriminatory practice of any kind. So we're really excited about the continued work. Again, this is not the end, and we're going to continue to push this movement. This is not just a Louisiana movement. This is part of a national movement across many states, and several states have already passed their own Voting Rights Act, as you can see here listed, including California and New York and Washington. But more importantly, we are not the only state in the South that is pushing this effort. So I just wanted to really take a moment and highlight those things as well. So we are not behind. This is a very pivotal moment for us all to continue to stay engaged and to protect our voice. So I again want to take this moment to highlight the hard work that we've done, what we just did. I want to thank you all for participating and letting your voice be heard at the Capitol, because it was strong, it was powerful, it was mighty to be there. And again, I can't thank you all enough for your support and the continued fight that is ahead. All right, I am at a point where I'm excited to be able to moderate a panel with our phenomenal leader of Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, Ashley Shelton. And Ashley is really nationally recognized and a civic leader in civic engagement, voting rights, movement building, power building. And it's a pleasure to be under her leadership at Power Coalition, as she brings very strategic and community-centered perspective. I'm also excited to moderate and introduce Representative Terry Landry Jr. Terry represents House District 67 and the Louisiana Legislature, and he is a dedicated public servant with a background and a commitment to justice, public safety, community advocacy. And in the legislature, he has been very consistent with his voice for fairness and equity. So I'm excited to transition us to a panel discussion with Ashley Shelton and Representative Terry Landry Jr. So hi, Ashley.
Hello, good evening. It's so good to see everybody here today.
Awesome. And Terry, is Terry on?
Yes, he's here.
Okay,
Hey,
okay.
how y'all
All
doing?
right. There you are. All right. Well, Ashley, I want to give you this time and this space to at least tell the crowd of where we are with the Louisiana versus Calais case,
Mhm.
and we'll start there.
Yeah, so Power Coalition, we were a named defendant in the Press Robinson versus Ardoin case that initially went to the Supreme Court. And as a plaintiff, we were fighting for fair representation for African American voters in the state of Louisiana. A third of the population in our state is African American, but we did not have fair representation in being able to elect candidates of choice in our for our congressional House delegation. And so through this fight that we have been fighting since 2022, and with so much of the hard work of citizens throughout this state, we have been able to really fight. And we've actually realized that second majority minority congressional seat here in the state of Louisiana that's currently being held by Congressman Cleo Fields. The fight has, continued, and so Calais and eight other white interveners, they brought a case saying that somehow, fair and equitable maps, violated their rights, and so we now find ourselves, in this moment with Calais, and so Calais went to, we provided oral arguments before the Supreme Court in October of this year. The Attorney General in the state did pull out of representing the Louisiana legislature and the plaintiffs of Louisiana that brought the original suit. And so the Legal Defense Fund, Janae Nelson, represented the interests of Louisiana and those plaintiffs and interveners, like myself, Devontae Lewis and others that have been fighting for fair and equitable maps. And so we wait. And so what we know is that we are looking at a timeline of probably June before we hear anything from the Supreme Court. But that doesn't mean that we just sit back and wait. We are doing the work of trying to make sure that, we are building a drumbeat. We want folks to be really clear that I don't want to live in a country where I cannot elect a candidate of choice. I don't want to live in a country where I cannot elect someone that is having the same lived experience that I am, who in the policymaking halls across this country at every level of government. And that's essentially what Calais will decide. If the Supreme Court decides to strike down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, I think the thing that folks like folks aren't paying attention to, but I think is the most important part of this argument is that if Section 2 is struck down, that at every level of government, all minorities will lose their ability to truly be able to elect candidates of choice in Congress, at the state level, at the state legislature, their city councils, their school boards, their BESI boards, you name it. It has the power to change, the representation that we have. And my friend and colleague Devontae Lewis, made the point yesterday at the legislature that many of the seats on our legislature, many of the seats held by African Americans on our city councils in major cities across the state, as well as our school boards, are VRA opportunity seats. These are seats that were created by the Voting Rights Act. And so when you see the sweeping changes that can happen overnight, as we saw in Texas, where overnight they changed and moved districts and, disenfranchised, the voices of many Black and brown voters in that state. That can happen anywhere. And our own legislature was poised to do that, and then thought better of it, giving the legislature, given that we're still waiting on an opinion from the Supreme Court. And so we find ourselves in this historical moment, right? Like that we are looking at an almost moment where we're going back to Reconstruction. And then I think it is of note that they're using the Reconstruction amendments, the 14th and 15th Amendments, that were created to protect minorities, to undermine and take away the voice of minorities. And so we are continuing to put the word out. We are continuing to talk about this, not only here in Louisiana, because again, this isn't just a Louisiana case anymore. This case is about, political power and voting rights for all Black, brown, API, and women of every race and ethnicity in this country are going to be impacted by this decision at every level of government. And so we are continuing to talk about this, happy to talk to your your groups about this and get the word out. But that's where we are. So we're likely waiting for a June decision from the Supreme Court, and again, just continuing to fight and continuing to build a drumbeat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, so with that, there's still so much more to do and so much more work that still needs to be done. And so my next question is related to that. And Terry, I'll let you go first, but we had the state VRA, the Louisiana VRA bill this week. And what is the temperature of the legislature? What's going on in that building? And what do you think are some good next steps for the community?
Well, first, let me say thank you all for having me. I think this is a very important discussion that we're having, and thank you to Ashley and Power. I want to brag a little bit on Ashley. We don't realize what a gem we have in Ashley and all the work that she's done across the state and really across the nation. So thank you all, and thank you, Ashley, for all that you do with Power, and just pleasure to be working alongside you in this fight. Look, yesterday, I mean, I'm never one to beat around the bush. Yesterday was tough. It was a really, really gut punch that we received, and not so much in the result, but just kind of how it came about, right? You have people that have worked really, really hard on this piece of legislation. It wasn't just about Senator Duplessis; it was about everyone that testified, everyone that showed up. If you were watching or go back and watch online, the room was actually filled. I think for the first time that I've been here in 17 years, we had three rooms completely packed with individuals who were vested and interested in this piece of legislation. And so, if you saw the number of green cards that were present, it was just an overwhelming support by everyone involved. And so, to have a hearing and have the facts laid out in such an eloquent way, and I think Senator Duplessis did an amazing job, and everyone that testified did an amazing job in relaying their own personal stories, how this affects the state, what it does to voting rights, the history. I mean, just so many great points were made, and to see my colleagues sit there stonewalled and not ask a question, not say what their concerns were, not voice why they were objecting to the legislation is really disheartening, because that's not what democracy is about, right? Democracy is about having a healthy debate, expressing point of views. How can we make things better? Where there may be a compromise, but how can I compromise if my adversary never shares what their opinions are? And so to see that happen and just to sit there and say, hey, we object to this bill, no rhyme or reason, but we know that they knew they had the numbers, and were able to just force that. It is really, really just it's troubling. And so look, I'm fresh off the House floor. We just got out, which is why I was a little late. But I just had this conversation with my colleagues that we have to really express this to the leadership to say, hey, we may have to make some changes on the executive rules to say if you object to a bill that has so much support, let's start giving reasons why. Let's let the people know why you're objecting, right? It's not for me or my colleagues. We know why, but the people need to know why. The people deserve to hear why this is not, in their opinion, good legislation, or why there are problems with the legislation, because how can we fix it? How can we come to that compromise, like I just said? But then also, we need to hold people responsible. We need to look at those individuals who had a vote and ask them and hold them accountable as to, hey, look, why aren't you voting on this? What is the problem? What issues do you have? So that's where you guys come in, and the public comes in, the community comes in, and to hold our elected officials accountable for their actions. We work for you all, and so every vote that we take, we should be held accountable for. We should be able to defend and voice why we took that particular piece of why we took that stance. I think that happens good and bad. Another thing we have to do is not allow outside individuals of the legislature to be held accountable as well. We have an elected official in the Secretary of State who sent a hit list basically to the committee and said there were six bills that in both House and Senate government affairs that would never see the light of day. And so she ensured that by sending that hit list, and it just so happens that that list only included African American legislators' bills, right? So we have to make that known public, hold her accountable as well, because she is not a member of the legislature. And if she wanted to do so, it's my opinion that she should have stayed in office, right? She was a former state representative. And so she decided to go and be the Secretary of State. And so she needs to be able to respect that we are now the policymakers and not use that influence on her former colleagues, and we have to be able to stand up and say, "Hey, look, that is not acceptable, especially from members of the African American community. That only our bills are being targeted." And like I said, there's no discussion, there's no comments being made, and it's really just a shame for our people to sit here and have that happen to them in their face, in our faces. Like I said, there's so many people in the room and watching across this state. So those are the things that I think where community comes in. We really got to be involved. We cannot give up. We cannot let this defeat us. There is still light at the end of the tunnel. Like I said, I know it was a huge gut punch, but I promise you, from myself and my colleagues, we will not continue. We will not give up. We will continue to fight, but we're going to need your help to hold those individuals who are becoming our obstacles and barricades to getting this done. Hold them accountable and reach out to them and make them commit as to why they're taking this particular stance.
No, I appreciate that, Terry. That was really great information. And I appreciate you also informing everyone on this call that it's not just the Republicans in the legislature that is, that held that bill up. It was also definitely activity from the Secretary of State as well. So I appreciate those comments. Ashley, do you want to add anything else to, where we are, the nature of our state, and any action items for the community?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, and I just we dropped it in the chat. I want everybody to understand about this particular bill. So SB 365, that again, the state VRA bill that was heard yesterday. The point of bringing the bill was to be very clear that the state of Louisiana can protect our voting rights itself, like the state itself. I don't have to wait for a decision from Calais, for the state of Louisiana to put some laws in place that actually protect, my agency as a voter here in the state of Louisiana. And they chose not to in that committee yesterday. And I think to Representative Landry's point, the reality is also that, and they didn't even defend themselves. They didn't give any reason. They didn't debate. They didn't say why they voted the way they voted. And these are those moments too where it's like, where's the accountability, right? Like, if you can do something and then not even have to be accountable or answer for it, that's also something that's problematic. And so I do, challenge folks to stay up on this legislative session. Power Coalition's website has lots of resources around how the legislature works, how you can engage, where you can also find the bills that we're tracking, because we track a lot of bills. Anything that's impacting equity and justice in this state, we are tracking those. And then also too, we're here to support as, you're having lobby days and other things at the Capitol, or would like some support. There's lots of resources that we're happy to provide to folks that are fighting for equity and justice in the state of Louisiana. There's also a newspaper article that came out as well. And so also dropping that into the chat, because I feel like it did a good job of laying out what happened in that committee room yesterday. And to Representative Landry's point, that it was over 138 green cards, significant testimony that was emailed in. Also, too, in addition to those three full committee rooms, the hallway was full, and lots of discussion and lots of engagement and amazing testimony. And so, if you haven't had a chance to watch some of the testimony from yesterday, including Representative Landry's wonderful and amazing wife, Valencia, I mean, there was just such powerful testimony. And so, if you have a chance, please visit the link and just watch what so many people thoughtfully said, including one of our 10-year-old future leaders out of Shreveport, about why voting rights matter to her as young as 10 years old. And so, so just encourage you to go back and watch that if you haven't had a chance.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. So as we're here fighting for our voting rights, at the same time, there are many rapid changes happening to elections and election systems and moving to closed primary. There's confusion around that because there's now legislation that doesn't include all state offices. So now there's some more changes. I want the next question I would like to ask you all is, how should voters be responding? And what's the best way to keep our communities engaged and informed when we're at a time where they're just being, even more confused or disempowered? Like, what are some of your advices or things you would like to share about where we are today with our election systems?
I mean, I think the first thing is that none of the barriers you've mentioned are by accident. I mean, it is very intentional, which is really sad for a state like Louisiana that has traditionally low voter turnout across race and class. And so we're trying to continue to suppress the vote and the voice of a state full of people who aren't really worried about, engaging in the voter or electoral process. And so but I think that if we are sick and tired of being sick and tired and we want things to change in our state, then we've got to do the work of making sure that we are participating in these elections, and ensuring that we are electing folks that are going to do the work of the people. Right now we have one of the most powerful oh gosh, I want to say congregations, Lord. I wish there was some Jesus somewhere in there, but we delegations. We have one of the most powerful congressional delegations that we've ever had. I mean, we've got the Speaker of the House, we've got the Majority Whip, we've got somebody on appropriations, we've got folks in all of these really powerful committees, but we're seeing this delegation bring almost nothing home. We've seen slashes and cuts to Medicaid, SNAP benefits to feed our children, our elderly, slashes to the budget around FEMA. That as a state that is dealing with multiple disasters, I mean, all of this stuff is happening, and the Louisiana voters put all these people in office for them to do exactly what they're doing. And so we have an opportunity in the fall to change our House delegation and even one of our senators. And so that's why it's so important that you engage in the closed primaries. And understand that system. Don't let it, don't let it deter you. The other thing that I'm going to offer to folks here is also to know your status. Everybody may have, or many folks have been talking about these purges, these inactive voter lists, and what people may or may not have to do. And I think what's really important is you need to know how you are currently listed on on the voter rolls. Are you still on the voting rolls? Can you vote? What else do you need to do in order to make sure that on May 16th, when we have our next election, that you can vote both in these closed primaries for our congressional delegation, but that also these constitutional amendments and these other things. And so there's a lot that we can do. But the most important piece is to not be deterred, to not be intimidated, and to truly engage. And again, there's tons of resources on our website about the closed primary process. I know PAR also did a guide on the closed primary process. But again, if we can get you to the polls, there's tons of information, sample ballots on our website, all those good things. But I do think that it's important to make sure you know your status and to make sure that you are still on the rolls as an active voter here in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thanks,
look, I
Carrie.
think Ashley put it perfectly. I just add just a little tidbit. You know, every election is important. I know in Louisiana we have a ton of them. It seems like every other month we're having an election cycle, but every single one of those is important, and that is also done by design. It is an effort to make people disengage. It's an effort to have voter fatigue and just say, okay, we got another election. It's the same names and just different offices, right? So, but we know that all those elections impact our lives. Our good friend Checo always says elections have consequences, and we're seeing it firsthand. These things that are happening are by design, and the people that are being put in office are being put by a small percentage of people. And it's truly unfortunate. We have a ton of registered voters across the state. We just need to mobilize, and that is the easiest part to go in and push a button. They make voting so easy these days. It takes a short amount of time. We have longer amounts of time during early voting. You have about 2 weeks, included as well as election day. So there really is plenty of opportunity where we should see numbers increase. And like we always say, if it didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to take it away from us. And that we're seeing that consistently. So I would just say, please continue to show up at every election. And then also for the legislature, pay attention to all the bills. Think about it this way. what my colleagues, or I don't want to, yeah, my colleagues and some even adversarial colleagues do a great job of doing is they chump away bit by bit. So, right, you think about bills being filed in this session, it's about 1,500 bills that are filed. And so you may not see this grand overhaul of any system or any policy, but when you start taking those little bitty pieces and you put them all together at the end of session, let's say 500 out of those 1,500 pass, and they each take little chips away, that adds up and it's going to make a huge impact. So we can't look at these bills and policies in silos. We have to look at them together and add, and when you read them together, how effective they are and what they do and how damaging they'll be to our communities if we continue to just sit back and not hold our elected officials accountable, not get out there and elect the right candidates for the right reasons.
No, absolutely. And I think that there's a particular assault on the judicial system in New Orleans. We have a legislator that doesn't even live in the district that he is undermining, to completely making decisions about how things should work in New Orleans. And, people feel like that, it's been long a conversation about, how folks could, take charge of New Orleans. Well, I want to remind folks that New Orleans is the economic engine of this state. And if folks can say whatever they want, they can feel how they want to feel. But at the end of the day, when you start playing games with the economic engine of our state, then, then whatever you believe, whatever you think about what needs to go on in New Orleans, the people that live there should be making those calls and making those choices, not people that don't live there deciding what's best for the people that do live there. And I think that that's true for any of the cities in this state. That yeah, like you're not going to come tell me how I should be, how things should be in my city that I'm living in every single day. And I think that those are some of those it's a macro aggression. It's not a microaggression, but these kinds of, macro aggressions that we're seeing towards New Orleans, and, in our other major metros. And so I definitely think that, we have to pay attention, and Representative Landry's absolutely right. If you're not paying attention to what's happening, they're chipping away on every issue we've ever cared about. And I always say that, like everything I love is in this place. Everything I love is in Louisiana and parts of Houston, um, parts of Texas. However, the reality is that I feel like sometimes this legislature is just chipping away at what's left of what we love about this state. And I'll be damned. We're gonna fight and we're gonna continue to fight, so that this remains a place that we love and that we can be proud of.
I just want to add to both those comments. We were furious that the SB 365, the Louisiana Voting Rights Act, did not get out of committee, but this is our opportunity to show up and show our power. And that's through elections. Show up and go out and vote. They're trying to take it away from us because they know and see that there's power in that. And we have the numbers. And if we actually show up, we can have a government and a democracy that looks like us and represents us. So I just want to continue and just put that little nugget in there one more time. And also, Rep. Landry made an excellent point about the legislature and all of these bills and how they chip at it little by little. And it's so imperative that we pay attention to that. So thank you to both of you on that. I am going to shift us back to just centering us on like the purpose of our roadshow, the 2026 roadshow. Why are we doing the roadshows? And why are roadshows such an important community tool? And how did we pick our location? So that is a question for both of you.
So, one of the things I love about Louisiana is making my way through, right? I spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge, the river parishes in New Orleans, just because that's closest to where I live, but really excited to get into Alexandria, Shreveport, Lake Charles. And part of it is, Power Coalition is a coalition of organizations, that are working to solve, everything you can think of, from housing to criminal justice, to economic opportunity, workers' rights, children and education, early childhood education in particular. And so we are fighting on all these fronts because we understand, that we need statewide power and that like you have to also show people how policy is actually showing up in their everyday lives. And so for us, we have, partners and staff in a lot of places throughout the state. And so initially we always pick the places where where we've got a team. And so we've got Billy Anderson in Shreveport. We have Sharon in Alexandria. Then we've got Raymond Vincent right here in Baton Rouge, and then Dakota, Ori, and our whole team that is based in New Orleans. And so at the end of the day, like we start in those places, but we have been able to build consistent relationships over the years with different churches, different partners. And you cannot build power in just South Louisiana. I always tell folks want to think that, I mean, now even though the population and the tax base are Baton Rouge South, and so like literally the people and the economic engine is in South Louisiana, but we all know when we go to the legislature, you need 53 votes on the House side, and you need 20 on the Senate side to be able to move anything. And so that means I have to be able to work across this state. We have to have voice and power across this state. And we have to be able to use that power to try to, influence and create the kind of change that we know is necessary. So, and so that, I mean, and then too, like we were only going to do, I think, 4 stops initially. And we heard you. And so we are working with some partners at Lafayette. We're coming to Lafayette and New Iberia. We're definitely coming to Monroe. We have heard you. We have to get to Shreveport, but also Monroe. And then like Charles, I mean, they just elected their first Black mayor and, are doing some really powerful work down there. And so Reverend Alexander and some of our partners down there really excited to be working with them and kicking this off. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about all of the partners that are joining us on this roadshow. And so Southern Poverty Law Center, ACLU, Liberty and Dignity Campaign, Vote, Women with a Vision, Housing Louisiana, and so many others that that we work with every single day. Step Up Louisiana, to really be able to fight, invest in Louisiana, to fight for a better Louisiana, and one that actually works for the people that live here, and not just business and corporations. And so we're not saying we won't add a spot. One of the things that was really beautiful about the roadshow last year was that we understand that some of this people don't always know what's going on and what this stuff means. I saw a question in the chat, and I'm going to answer it around why are like redoing these amendments? We're redoing these amendments because the governor said that the state of Louisiana and its voters are conditioned for failure, and that's why the amendments failed last year. And so they said they allegedly went back into community and talked to folks, even though these all were killed by 65% of voters in this state. Unprecedented turnout for a spring election, and 50 out of 64 parishes said absolutely not at 65%. But we're bringing them back because allegedly something has changed. And what I would like for you to do, I know they dropped the link for the kind of explainers on the constitutional amendments, and what you will see is that these absolutely are some of the same amendments that are very hurtful, that debase the power of folks in our community. And then also to remind folks that when we talk about constitutional amendments, we're enshrining this in our Constitution forever, okay? Because it's easier to get something in than it is to get something out. And I want folks to really think about, like, why are we enshrining some of these terrible things, within our Constitution? And now we've expanded the constitutional amendments to be able to go after our workers, our state workers, and those that have been serving the state diligently for years and years. And there's so many others. And so I think that, it is unfortunate that we have to continue to fight the same fight that we've already fought. But I think that's even more reason for voters to stand on business and said, we said what we said, no, and encourage folks to, again, to get out and talk to others. And I said all of that to say that as we did this roadshow last year, we met so many different groups and partners. And so if there is an opportunity to talk to other groups and partners, we're all ready to get out and talk and share with folks our perspective and what we understand about these amendments and what a vote yes means and what a vote no means. And really encouraging folks to get involved and get engaged in the spring election because there's a lot at stake. Two Public Service Commission seats, our entire congressional House delegation, a Senate seat, and so much more. And so, in these five constitutional amendments. And so, if we ever needed the folks in the state to show up, this is actually one of those times. And so, that's why we do a roadshow. We're trying to build statewide power. We're trying to help folks truly engage and understand what's at stake.
Yeah, and look, just to add a little bit, we power has shown the road shows work. They're effective. There is no Calais without the Robinson case, and there's no Robbins case without a road show. A few years ago, I mean, it was remarkable to see how many people came out and were able to express their own personal stories, and those personal stories led to that lawsuit, led to us getting that second congressional seat, and that's why it's so important that we keep it because so many people put their heart and soul and time and effort into doing that across the state. People came out in droves each and every night and got educated. They got information. They also were able to articulate their own points and then turn that into testimony. So when we say it was truly a powerful thing across the state and what it led to was remarkable and what we have now. And so those things really matter. It's not just a gathering to say hey to your friends and this is nice to do, but we were not only able to kill those five amendments last year, but then, like I said, also that second congressional minority congressional seat is a direct result of the roadshow and what was documented through that time.
Thank you, Terry, for that. Because also about those amendments, there's always technical legal language. And what the road show allowed us to do is to, break it down into simpler terms so that the community can go out and tell their friends and their families in easier ways. So I appreciate you both. Um, we're at a point where we need to transition, but are there any closing remarks that either you, Ashley, or Terry would like to say before we transition?
The one thing I will say, and I can't say it enough, we have done so many things in this state that folks thought could not be done, and so we will not be deterred. I am not afraid. We're gonna continue to show up and do the work, and that's all we're asking voters to do is to continue to show up, and do the work. Bring a friend, call a friend. I tease my kids all know. Until you see your sticker, there will be no dinner. I need to see the sticker. And so, at the end of the day, I just encourage folks to not be discouraged. There's a lot of bad news. Somebody just literally, our friend Checo Yancey just texted me that now they're criminalizing homelessness in this, at the legislature. Like these things are terrible. Where's our empathy? Why, like we're not taking care of our people, and which is so counter to the things that I actually love about Louisiana is that we take care of each other. We take care of our neighbors. We take care of our family, and so one, don't be discouraged. Let's keep fighting, and then let's make sure that on May 16th, but hopefully May 2nd through the 9th for early voting, that we vote make your voice heard and that we get our communities fully engaged and send a really strong message.
No, listen, couldn't said it better myself. I think one of the great things in Louisiana, we have a gathering for everything, whether it's a football game, it's a nice day outside. We don't need a reason to celebrate or to gather. So I'm encouraging everybody, we got to treat voting the same way. Throw a crawfish ball May 16th. Encourage your folks to come out and say, we're gonna watch the results while we sit here and eat and gather in our communities, because that's just how important it is. We cannot let these things happen right under our noses. And we have the power in our hands to go and cast those votes and cast those ballots on May 16th and during early voting. So look, get some people together. It's not okay just to go out and punch the button yourself. Like Ashley said, grab a friend. Hell, grab 10 friends. Grab all your neighbors and say, we're going to come back and celebrate and watch what a movement really looks like, because this is our time. This is our movement that we're dealing with, and we just have to make sure our voices are heard.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us tonight. And I'm going to kick it back to my colleague Max to lay out all of the stops of our roadshow.
All right, crew. Thank you so much, Ashley and Rep Landry. Thank you. Um, So Ashley laid out the stops. This is the first stop of our road show tonight, virtually, but we are all getting in the bus together and we are hitting the road. So next week we will be in Alexandria on Tuesday, April 14th. Later in the week we are heading to Monroe in the morning on Thursday, April 16th. Before that night, we finish the week in Shreveport, Thursday, April 16th. The following week, we're coming back to the capital, heading to Baton Rouge on Tuesday, April 21st. And then we're headed to Lake Charles later in the week on Thursday, April 23rd. Next week, we are starting with New Orleans on Tuesday, May 5th, before, like Ashley said, heading to New Iberia on Thursday, May 7th, and then ending in Lafayette that day on Thursday, May 7th. And then we are hitting up the river parishes as well. We are going all over the state. We are in the bus. As you can see, the bus is headed down the road towards a brighter future, and we want you there with us. So here's the full run. I'll pause here if you want to take a screenshot, but we will certainly follow up with all of this information after the meeting, and I'm going to drop it in the chat now as well. If you go to this link, you'll be able to join by finding the closest stop near you and coming out and joining us in person.
And then also too, we're going to add, we have a post-election statewide webinar, but we also too would love to work with some folks to maybe do one more statewide webinar before Election Day. So definitely we'll add that date as well.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Before we wrap up, I wanted to give folks another opportunity to take the Power Voter Pledge. Um, Ashley and Rep Landry have me fired up. I want to take it again so I can have dinner on election day. But the Power Vote Pledge is just three basic steps. It's voting in every election, holding your elected officials accountable, and advocating for equity and justice in your community. And so if that sounds like you, if you're that voter, please scan this QR code, or you can visit the link here and complete the pledge. As Representative Landry said, we have a lot of elections, the next one on May 16th. And so, A, make sure you're registered to vote, but also wanted to put some of these dates up just to get them in your head and make sure we're all on the same page. The next election day, early voting is on May 2nd through the 9th. And so we want to make sure folks are registered and make sure folks are ready. And then finally, what are the next steps leaving this meeting? Well, you have options. We're looking for poll monitors to make sure that these elections are safe and protected and that all voters have access to the polls. We are looking for folks to contact their member of Congress. The Louisiana legislature failed our State Voting Rights Act. They wouldn't even tell us why. They wouldn't even comment on it. So we want to contact members of Congress and ask them to co-sponsor the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You can do really quickly, you can contact your member of Congress using that link that I put in the chat. 3, we want to make sure you're getting all the most up-to-date information. So please sign up for our voting rights updates. And you can use that link or the QR code as well. 4, check your voter registration. As Ashley said, they are purging voters from the rolls, so you want to make sure you're registered and download your sample ballot. We went over a few things tonight that are going to be on your ballot, but these ballots are extra long this election. And so download your sample ballot before you head to the polls. Make sure you know everything that you're going to be voting on. And please, please, please vote till the end. Those 5 constitutional amendments that are incredibly important are at the bottom of your ballot. And so we want to make sure we're voting our ballots from top to bottom. And finally, last but not least, please, please, please join a show stop near you. We are looking for you to come out and join us in person. We are so happy you were here for the kickoff, but we really need you in person as well. So please use that link and come out and join us in person. That's all tonight, folks. I want to thank you for being here as we kick off our 2026 Roadshow. We are so happy to have you. I'm going to stay and keep the room open so you can access those links and get to that information. But thank you for coming out, and we will see you in person at a roadshow stop soon. All right, everyone. In case anyone, I just want to give an opportunity in case anyone is still copying down, please let me know. And then otherwise, I'm going to close the Zoom out. Okay, thank y'all so much.